I went from this to this in just under 9 months. Stick around to find out how. Hello everyone, semi-retired Bob here. I talk about the carnivore diet, all things related to the carnivore diet, and some miscellaneous odds and ends. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I am glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. You may be asking yourself, sorry about that sun blasting in behind us, but that's one of the side effects of it being sunny out. You may be asking yourself, what in the world are we watching here, Bob? Well, basically you're watching me walk. I try to come up with some interesting things to talk about while I walk, but basically you're watching me walk. Because a little over 9 months ago, or less than 9 months ago, I couldn't do this. I could barely stand for 2 to 2.5 minutes without severe pain. The carnivore diet has changed all that and many other things, which I get into in other videos. If you're returning to the channel, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. We have a very important topic today. I was going to save this for later in the series, but some things have come up that I felt it important to move this discussion to the front of the line. And I want to start off by saying I don't do science real well. I just don't. We're going to talk about statins and statin use. There's a little bit of homework you guys need to do after you're done watching this video. Absolutely crazy important that you go out, find the channel Low Carb Down Under, and watch the video that Dr. Paul Mason did titled The Shady Truth About Statins, Lecture 2 of 3. I can't tell you, if you're on a statin or thinking about taking a statin, you absolutely need to watch this video so that you can make an informed choice. I'm going to attempt to hit on some of the highlights. I apologize if I stumble a little bit. I'm going to try to not make mistakes. I actually remembered to bring my note sheet with me. But we all know Bob doesn't do science real well. But let's talk about statins just a little bit. What are they? Where did they start? How did they come into being? There was a Japanese scientist, I forgot to write his name down, but I think it was Akiro, who helped develop the first statin. And of course everything has taken off from there. And it's turned into, since it's the first release of modern day statins in 1987, it's a $1 trillion industry. And the way they make it a $1 trillion industry is they keep lowering the target LDL number so that more and more people become eligible for statin therapy, so they can keep selling it to more and more people. One of the things to understand about statins, and I've said this in other videos, so I'm going to start with this one. Your doctor always wants to talk about the risk reduction. You're going to lower your chances of having a bad outcome by 50% if you start taking a statin. Well, that is true if you look at the numbers in relative. That means in relation to each other. You guys knew that. I don't have to explain that. the actual hard science numbers that they came up with was without statin use was a 1, and with statin use was a 0.5 on a scale of 1 to 100. So, yes, 1 is bigger than a half by 50%. But in looking, and we've talked about this before, in looking at science data and studies, the difference, and risk is a bad word because it just is, because you have to have actual human experiments to determine risk for humans, and those just haven't been done. But to put it in terms, recently, well, not recently anymore, back in the 70s and 80s, they were doing this type of study to determine how bad cigarettes were for you. And those came in with a, and I use air quotes here, risk factor of 1,100 and some. 1,100. So in relation to the confidence of that study versus the confidence in this statin study, the difference between a 0.5 and a 1 is less than microscopic. And again, you're going to go watch that video by Dr. Mason, and he's going to explain to you that they do studies that look at primary prevention versus secondary prevention. Primary prevention is somebody who has an elevated LDL but has not had an instance of heart disease or heart attack or any other bad outcomes. Secondary prevention is for somebody who's already had a heart attack or had heart disease. And I can stop and interject here. I'm in the secondary prevention group. I've never had a heart attack, and my cardiologist says I wasn't going to have a heart attack. I was just going to drop over dead. I was in a widowmaker scenario where 2 of the vessels feeding a chamber of my heart were 100% blocked, and a third one was 98% blocked. So if something had happened and I'd lost that other 2%, I would have just dropped dead. It was that close. But I've had a triple bypass. But I'm in that group. And I've looked at all this stuff before, read all the papers, except the newest one that's out that I haven't had a chance to read much of yet, but it's a new paper out that Dr. Ben Bickman, Dr. Dave Diamond, and Dr. Paul Mason collaborated on. And you can find a link to that paper in the video that I just gave you to go watch. And it's an open source paper, so it doesn't cost you anything to download it, because they want everybody to be able to look at it and read it and do all that stuff. And some of the things that have been found, going back to primary prevention versus secondary prevention. The way they have, this is all sort of tied together, because within that newest paper, they went back and looked at some of the older studies, and the way they kind of rigged the system is they mixed in some of the secondary prevention outcomes with the primary prevention studies, and then said that their study was a primary prevention study, which is, as he calls it, shady at best. But let's get down to some of the hard numbers of real side effects and some of the stuff that, and again, I hate to use the word real side effects because there haven't been very many studies on actual humans. Although the one I found interesting, they actually, because they were conducted in the locked wards of places, they took people with Alzheimer's disease. And they stopped their statins for 6 weeks. Just 6 weeks, very, very short amount of time. Stopped their statins for 6 weeks, and they didn't say how many. He just said many of them had improved cognitive function at the 6 week mark. Then they put them back on their statins, and their improved cognitive function went away. Isn't that interesting? Some of the real side effects that have been reported by people taking them, of course, dementia. And I can tell you from my own personal experience with statins, because I was on statins for, I want to say 8 years or so, and I never noticed it while I was taking them. But now that I've stopped taking them, I can tell. I mean, it's why I have to have note sheets now, because I used to be able to recall facts and figures off the top of my head all day long. I can tell it's starting to come back some, having been off statins for almost 9 months now, because I literally threw my statins away the day I started the Carnivore Diet, based on the recommendations that I found. And you can check, besides the homework I've given you of Paul Mason's The Shady Truth About Statins. Dr. Berry has very strong opinions on them, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker. All of the influencers that we trust on this channel have nothing but bad things to say about statins. I'm not telling you do or don't take your statins. I'm giving you the information that I have found so that you can make an informed choice. In 71% of the participant studies, of the people in the study, they showed an increased risk of developing diabetes. And again, risk is a bad word. I don't remember what words they use in that, but I'm not a scientist. Please, if you're watching this, Professor K, don't grill me and rake me over the coals for using the word risk. I'm sorry. I'm just an old dumb retired truck driver. I don't know the better words to use. Another interesting thing, they saw an increase in these side effects in people over the age of 65. Isn't that interesting? Some of the other ones that have shown up nerve damage, muscle destruction, and, well, the hardest end point of all, death. Well, let's go ahead and talk about, people are saying health span versus lifespan. Well, you shouldn't really talk about lifespan. We're more interested in health span. How healthy does somebody live? Well, the bottom line truth is that most people that are healthy live longer. And one of the other inconvenient truths that if you go back and watch the video that I fell in, I covered this study a little bit on, they did basically just took a bunch of epidemiological studies and looked at all of them based on one hard endpoint: death. That's a hard endpoint that's, it's hard to fudge. Using soft endpoints, you have a lot of leeway in what you can interpret the studies as, but somebody dying is really hard to fake and really hard to cover up. And what they found is that as your LDL cholesterol went up above the 150 mark, your so-called risk, if you look at the line on the graph, moved up just a little bit. But then when you look at these new guidelines for 70 and lower LDLs, the hard endpoints on those being death, the risk line shot up the chart. Which, again, this is not scientific proof, but you can make a very strong inference that higher LDL is protective. And he talks about that quite a bit in this video. The last little bit that bring this discussion full circle I think I'm getting his name right, the Japanese scientist Hikiro that founded or discovered the first statin, years later was at his doctor's office and he'd been diagnosed with an elevated LDL. And his doctor, not knowing who he was or what he had done in his past, suggested that he take a statin to lower his LDL cholesterol. Remember, this is the father of statins, the guy that invented the whole bloody mess. What did he do? He declined statin therapy. I'll leave it up to you to decide why he did that. Gives you something more to think about, huh? So, again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I am not recommending you take statins or recommending you don't take statins. I'm giving you the information I could find so that you can make an informed choice. Because that's really what it's all about. Just like I talked about with the excess skin discussion, I talked about, having the skin removal surgery versus just using autophagy over time to tighten your skin back up. I'm not saying yes, you should do this, or no, you shouldn't do this. I'm just giving you the information that I could find. Because informed choice, that's really all I ask from anybody. Is that when you make a decision to do something or not do something, whether it be take a statin, don't take a statin, have surgery, don't have surgery, put that cookie in your mouth or don't put that cookie in your mouth, eat a carnivore diet, eat a keto diet, eat a standard American diet. Whatever, the choices you're making, go for a walk or sit on the couch, whatever those choices are, I want you to make an informed choice on what you're deciding to do. That's all I ask. And if you look at all of the research and read all of the black box warnings, all of the possible side effects, all of the very shady research that's been done on statins, and still decide it's right for you, then by all means go ahead. But if anything I said today has given you pause, then please investigate further. Start with the homework of watching Dr. Mason's video. Read the new study by Dr. Mason, Ben Bickman, and Dave Diamond. I am actually going to go do that this afternoon. And if I find anything that Dr. Mason doesn't cover in his video, I may put a little addendum on the end of this video. But we all know Bob's not really great at reading papers. I'm a very good reader, just when it comes to all the sciencey gobbledygook. I'm not very good at interpreting what it means. But let's make sure that regardless what we're doing, we're having informed consent. That's all I ask. I noticed there's some actual green patches of grass starting to show up in here underneath all the brown dead grass. So hopefully that means spring is on its way and this cold rainy weather is going to stop real soon, because if it's 70 degrees and raining, I can live with that. Or if it's 40 degrees and dry, I can live with that too. It's the whole 40 degrees and raining that's just miserable on my joints. I'll have some more thoughts for you at the end, but for now, let's cue the music. Okay, cut the music. Thank you. One of the things I forgot to talk about is why this is important in the How to Start and Maintain Carnivore series. It's going to happen to most of you. Somewhere in the 2, 3, or 4 month mark, you're going to go see your doctor. You're going to get a lipid panel, and your doctor's going to freak out. Because until you get a lot deeper into the process, your LDL is going to be elevated a little bit. And some people a lot. They're called lean mass hyperresponders. Your triglycerides are going to come down, but they're still going to be too high. And your HDL is going to start to come up, but it's still going to be a little bit too low. These are the markers that doctors look at. But as I found out, because at the 4 month mark, my LDL was elevated. My triglycerides had come down a lot, but they were still in the high range. And my HDL barely moved because I hadn't started doing any kind of exercise or lifting of heavy objects or anything like that. But the lipid markers I got done down here at about the 6.5 month mark, my LDL was still elevated, but my triglycerides came way down and my HDL came way up. So that, you know, they will stabilize again. But during the first 4 to 6 months of doing a carnivore diet, your lipids are going to be messed up because you've changed your diet. Your body is dumping fat. And how does it dump fat? Well, you know, you oxidize it and breathe it out, and some of it, you know, but to do that it has to go into the bloodstream first and get oxidized out, and you actually breathe out your oxidized fat cells. At least that's the way I understand it. Again, I'm not a scientist. I don't play one on TV. I don't even play one on YouTube. But your lipids are going to be a little messed up. It's going to freak you out. Your doctor's going to freak out and say, here, take this statin. And again, as long as you make an informed choice, that choice is yours. I looked at all of the data way back, you know, as I was getting ready to start this diet, and made the choice to throw my statins away the day I started the carnivore diet, because, like I said, I didn't notice the cognitive issues right away until my brain started to clear up. But I had muscle pain. Obviously, I mean, I can't tell you for sure, but, you know, I was put on statins, I don't know, 5 years prior to my heart surgery. I was put on statins at about the same time I was put on my diabetes meds, which is, you know, kind of a double whammy to begin with, because statins tend to make diabetes worse in some of the non-scientific studies. So I can't say that statins definitely caused my triple bypass, because there's too many other confounding variables. I just don't know. But the one thing I do know for sure today is that statins are no longer contributing to any of my problems. And that's all I'm saying, folks. Just read all the stuff, you know, and a lot of the information that Dr. Paul Mason gives in this video comes from Crester's page on statins. And, you know, they're about information on that medicine, because Crester is a statin. So check that out for yourself too. Very interesting stuff. But as long as you're making an informed choice, that's what I care about. Don't forget, get out there, be 1% better today. Just 1% better, that's all it takes. to have remarkable improvements in your health. I'm here to show you that it's never too late. As long as you wake up in the morning and can take a breath, you can still change your life. Have a great day, everyone. I will see you tomorrow. Here I am back again just for a quick little recap and ending into the video. It's the last day of missions conference. It seems like we wait all year for this week to get here, and you blink twice and it's over. But it's been a really good missions conference. We've had 5 really good missionaries. When Pastor Watford got here 10 years ago, they didn't support any missionaries, and he had a goal of adding 4 per year. And we're right on schedule because we've got 40 on the English side, and the Spanish ministry picked up their second. So we have 42 missionaries that we support out of this church. Last night they had a little meal before the service, and it was nachos and tacos and things like that. Nothing I could have tonight. Tonight they're having hot dogs, chili dogs, and all that stuff, but I can eat a hot dog as long as I don't have a bun. So I'm going to have hopefully 3 or 4, maybe even 5 hot dogs, and then I'll have some boiled eggs after the service, and that'll be my food for the day. I know some of you are out there going to start screaming nitrates and nitrites and oh, please don't eat hot dogs, but there's nothing wrong with hot dogs. I ate hot dogs and Spam and lunch meat and all that stuff when I first started. And did you know they are in clinical trials right now for a new blood pressure medicine? Not that I need any blood pressure medicine, but there are clinical trials out there for a new blood pressure medicine that's based on, you guessed it, nitrates. Go figure. So I guess all the nitrite hullabaloo a few years ago was just more smoke and mirrors to convert people off eating stuff that's good for you. Because now, is eating a steak better than eating a hot dog or Spam or any of that kind of stuff? Absolutely. But eat what you can afford. And the hot dog and the Spam is still thousands of times better than a bag of Cheetos. That's what I got for you today, folks. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.